Welcome to QBOchat Interviews. Join us as we interview some of the best apps that integrate with QuickBooks Online and learn how these apps are making life better for accountants and bookkeepers. Hey guys, this is Cathy Iconis with QBOchat, and I'm here with Brendan from AutoEntry.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to hear more about your app. So tell me about AutoEntry and what you guys do.
So as the name suggests, AutoEntry automates your data entry, right? So the whole concept of what we're trying to do is to allow bookkeepers, accountants, and even business owners spend more time getting the value out of QuickBooks more than just spending the time getting information into QuickBooks, right? So the reason why our whole app exists is we realized some time ago that businesses were often spending a multiple of what they were spending, say, on QuickBooks itself, just getting the information into it. And so we said, well, if we can automate that, that's a really big problem solved. So that's what we do. So be that the payables, like the accounts payable side of things, where it's the business expenses, the bills, the receipts, the credit notes, and so on, we automate all of that. Even for bookkeepers and accountants, sometimes their clients may not even be raising their sales invoices yet in QBO itself, right? They've yet to encourage the client to interact with QBO. And so sometimes they're still raising sales invoices externally. And that might be a necessity because of a niche type of business they're in. And then the bookkeeper then has to re-enter that information into QuickBooks, so we can automate that too. And finally, then you've got things like for tax, you've got guys that come in to their accountant once a year and they've got a year's worth of bank statements and that kind of thing. And normally, how did they get that information in without the manual data entry? They don't. So we can do that. So they can upload scanned bank statements, credit card statements. We extract all of the transactions and give you fast coding into QBO, so it's done in minutes. Awesome. So they're the three main things that we've always been focusing on. More recently, we've released expense reports, so employee expense reports, so that they can be ring-fenced per employee, so that they can actually stamp all their receipts, or put them into a report, submit them, get them approved, and then all of that together goes into QBO. So that's what we've done already. Primarily, most of our customers tend to be actually the accountants and bookkeepers, only because, I suppose, immediately they see the huge value. If they have 20 clients or 50 clients or more, and they're saying, you know what, we're paying lots of people to get this information in, but not only that, we want to get bigger, right? We want to take on more clients, and our biggest issue is it's not the cost of the data entry, it's getting good people to be able to do that for them, because they can only do so much themselves. So what we've seen now is we've got even independent bookkeepers go from, well, I used to have 15 clients and I was trying to hire someone, but it wasn't really working out. Whereas now, if I can automate the data entry, I can actually facilitate 40 clients myself. And I get to feel that I'm spending more of my time doing the important stuff for that business owner. That I can actually interpret that information, advise them on where, maybe they can do things differently, better, be more wary of their cash flow. Because while there are wonderful cash flow apps, for example, unless the information is in as to what bills need to be paid in 30 days' time, that cash flow forecast isn't going to be right. So the sooner that information can be got into the system, the more the accountants and the business owners can benefit from it. Well, the funny thing is, because we solve the problem for a broad range of documents, so it's not just the bills and receipts, and because the granularity of the functionality that we offer is probably more extensive than many of our competitors. So for example, for bills, right, there's a lot of apps out there that will capture a bill and put the vendor bill into QBO, but they maybe don't capture the line items. So if you're a restaurant, or you're a manufacturing company, or you're a retailer, and actually your suppliers have bills with lines and lines and lines of products, or parts, or food items, and you actually don't just allocate all of that to one expense account. Different lines need to go to maybe different expense accounts, different GL codes, but they may also even have to be tracked to different clients, because a contractor might buy lots of materials, but actually he gets one bill, but those materials are going to 4 different projects. So without that line item detail, you don't get to do what you need to do. So we've always offered things like full line item capture. We've now released recently a really granular rules engine for invoices, for bills. So you can build up rules like you'd have for bank rules. But you can say, well, if a line item for this vendor begins with this 6-digit code, like a SKU, well then it goes there. If it contains the word frozen, it goes to the frozen foods, category that I've set up in my chart of accounts. So it can do really granular things, and those rule engines mean that you can have 10 pages of line items, and as soon as you open up AutoEntry, not only have we captured the key information like the total of the bill and who it's from, but actually all of that detail, and it's mapped to the product or service or the proper GL account that ordinarily would take a lot of time to do. For the bookkeepers, it often is more the accounts payable side of things. They're capturing the bills and receipts, but also expenses, and having the appropriate ring fencing of expenses so they can go through approval. But the payables, it is always about the payables for them. Is the mobile app really simple for my clients to use? Does it protect me from letting the user do too much and actually miscode things or try to do some of it themselves, when actually I only want my clients to take the pictures, get the documents to me as soon as you actually receive them, and just tell me the two basic pieces of information I don't know. Tell me, how did you pay for it, and does it need to be tagged to a particular location or class? With that, they're saying, this is great, because not only that, but the pricing model is such that one bookkeeper can have a subscription of AutoEntry, and they can have all their clients eat out of that one pool of credits, right? So it's like tokens. So you can say, well, you know what, I need 3,000 documents captured a month. But even if one of your clients only does 5, you're only paying for 5. So it means you can put all your clients on, not worry that, am I paying, is it worthwhile to put this client on this app because it's $30 a month or something like that. And maybe they have such few number of documents. I'll only use it for certain big clients and then I'll keep them separate. But then you don't have a standard streamlined process, so your practice isn't benefiting from the ability to scale. So it's a whole mixture of things. So as I say, for different people, it's different things.
Thank you, Tom, for taking your time today to show us AutoEntry so that we can learn more about the product and what all you guys do.
Absolutely. And Cathy, yeah, I'll return the thanks. Thank you very much for having me. I saw you interviewing Brendan at Scale New Heights, and we had an awesome event there. So it's really good to finally get to record the demonstration. So for those of you that have never sort of heard of AutoEntry before, haven't come across us before, really the problem that we're solving for CPAs and bookkeepers all over the world is the problem of getting data into the software. So getting things like bank statements, bills, invoices, receipts, credit card statements. Really what we try to do is ensure that we can get that financial data into QuickBooks Online, or actually even QuickBooks Desktop, as quickly and as efficiently as possible, so that you're left with real-time information that you can use to then deliver sort of more value to your clients. So as you can all see, this is, I suppose, really what AutoEntry looks like. As soon as you log into AutoEntry, so you can access us, like any other cloud software, just through autoentry.com. And when you come through to it, what you're going to see is what we actually like to call the AutoEntry dashboard. Now, we can see here along the left-hand side, essentially what we do is we just have all of the clients that we're looking after. So this is just be all your clients here. And then we have just an overview of their activity and what packages they're integrated with. So as we can see here, we've got the integration status with QuickBooks Online. We've got our purchases. So we've got 7 here, which that purchase is going to be our bills, our sales invoices, and then our bank statements as well. Now, what I'm going to do for the purpose of this demo is I'm actually just going to click onto one of these companies. I'm actually going to click on Burgundy LLC here. And what that's going to do is that's going to take me through to our folder screen. Now, as you can see here, we have 4 succinct folders. We have a folder for our purchases, our sales, our statements, and then actually our expense reports as well. Now, what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with the bills, so purchases. The reason why I'm going to start with that is this actually tends to be our most popular one for our CPA clients, having a problem with sort of clients that they're doing, what I would like to call sort of outsourced accounting clients that are bringing in the sort of bag of rubbish, if you will, and someone's having to manually enter that into their software. So what I'm going to do is, if we just step back and think about the workflow for a second, let's just say Mr. Smith, Mr. Client, comes at me with a big bag of rubbish full of bills. Alternatively, the client themselves has these bills and they're having to manually enter them into QuickBooks Online. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that data, and I've got a choice. I'm going to scan it in my office through my standard office scanner, and absolutely any scanner will do. I'm going to get the client to maybe scan and email it over to me. So each one of your AutoEntry clients would have a unique email address. Or alternatively, I'm just going to take out my smartphone and I'm just going to snap a bunch of pictures of my client's bills. Alternatively, get my client to download the smartphone application and get my client to do that. Now, I'm going to pretend that I'm manually scan the data through. I'm just going to click upload for a second, because there's one sort of, I suppose, differentiating sort of functionality, if you will, that I want to highlight for everyone. And that is this. Yeah, whenever you upload data into AutoEntry, AutoEntry is going to automatically detect the single and multi-page items. So let's just say I've got a big stack of bills, let's call it 100. Got 100 bills from Mr. Smith, the client. All I need to do is just put them in my office scanner, scan them all through, and AutoEntry will detect whether there's a single page bill and a multi-page bill and pass them out as is required. Second thing that I want to highlight on this as well is I want to highlight the capture of line items. And the reason I do that is, to be honest with you, this is kind of what the functionality we double down on. Our ability to capture line items. So every bill that we process through AutoEntry, we can capture line items should you choose to. And also subsequently, after we capture line items, we can also set up line item rules to ensure that wherever we've caught the line items, they'll be coded wherever they need to be, which I'm going to demonstrate to you in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to browse my files, going to upload my data, and essentially what I'm going to do then is just kind of forget about it and let AutoEntry just extract all of the transactional data. And when AutoEntry has done that, what's going to happen is you as the user is just going to receive a notification saying, hey, John uploaded 200 bills to Burgundy LLC, as we can see here. Please log into AutoEntry and view the data that's been captured. And all we're going to do is we're going to click on the inbox, and it's just going to show us the transactional data we've captured. So as you can see, it's pretty simple layout. We've just got the date, the supplier name, the currency, and then the total of the bill. And what's actually been brought in from our QBO account is, as we can see here, we call it the supplier account and the category, but for QBO speak, if you will, the vendor name and the account. And of course, we can also code it to the correct location and class should that be required. But so this is kind of like just a high level view of what we've done. We've just captured all the data off the document. But actually, if we just go a step further, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually just going to click onto this AutoEntry eye symbol here. And the left-hand side here, what that takes us through to is we've got all of the information that we've captured. So we've captured, as you can see, the supplier name, all of this really valuable information, captured the reference field, etc. Again, there's a few things I want to highlight to you in this page that sets us apart from everyone else that does this, because there's other players that do this kind of work. Now, the first thing I want to bring to your attention here is the PO matching. AutoEntry is the only data capture app in the QuickBooks Online ecosystem to offer PO matching. So essentially what that means is if you've got a purchase order that is in QuickBooks Online for this amount from this supplier, we will automatically reconcile the bill against the purchase order. So again, if we take a step back and think about what niches that's going to be relevant for, or sorry, I'm in America, niche. Think about where that's going to be relevant for is it's construction, manufacturing. We've noticed actually in hospitality as well. Anyone that's using a ton of POs, this is going to be really valuable for. What we can also do here is, if I just scroll down, we've got we can mark this bill to go through as paid. So instead of it going through as just a bill to QuickBooks Online, so it's unpaid, we can actually make sure it goes through as an expense, so a paid transaction. So we've got the payments account here, so we might want to use the current account, publish to an expense. We've got the date that it was paid, the reference, and the payment method as well, if it was check, cash, etc., etc. And what we've also got as well, which is going back to sort of where AutoEntry really suits what particular clients it works with, is think about going back to sort of construction firms and manufacturing, which I'm talking about that a lot. We have such a broad swathe of clients, but this is where a lot of CPAs have found value in this functionality, is the concept of billable customers. So what you can do is you can allocate a bill to a customer. So say, for example, you want to allocate all of this bill to Gita Kalapata Apu. What that'll do is that will allocate this bill. When you send the invoice from QuickBooks Online, this bill will be included on their final invoice. Alternatively, if you're using something like Home Depot and you're buying multiple goods for multiple customers for one supplier, or I should say your clients are doing that, you can just allocate it per line item to the customer. And just the final thing on line items that I want to highlight for you as well is that while QuickBooks Online has the concept of bank rules, which is really, really useful, AutoEntry has the concept of line item rules, which essentially means that what we can do is we can set up, whenever we see a transaction with this description, it will automatically be coded to job supplies. And we can even go into a little bit more granularity with that. We can say, whenever you see the keyword, let's just say CPF in this case, whenever you see the keyword CPF from this particular supplier, from Lennox, automatically code it to job supplies. It could say 10 times CPF, or it could say box of CPF. It doesn't really matter. Whenever it has that keyword in the line item, it will always be coded to that job supplies, which, to be honest with you, a lot of our clients have really seen that as kind of the next stage of data capture automation. Now, I just want to, before we move on to like the bank statement side of things, which is, I suppose, a whole other area that we cover, I want to show you what an invoice would look like inside QuickBooks Online. So let's just have a look at this one here. And this green tick here means the data is in QuickBooks Online. And should I choose to remove it from QuickBooks Online, I can unpublish it, just like this one here. I've unpublished that bill. I'm going to click on the AutoEntry eye here. And what we're going to do is, again, it's the same thing, guys. The left-hand side is the data in. We can see that this didn't match up with the purchase order because obviously there wasn't one available. And then we've got all of the line items that haven't actually been allocated to a customer. But this bill is actually in QuickBooks Online. And as I said, we can tell that because it tells us. So I'm going to click on expense transactions. And as we can see, it's going to take us straight through to our expenses. And I can see this bill here, browser stack. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on browser stack. And essentially what we've done is we've just created the transaction within QBO. So you can see that this transaction has gone in the mailing address, the bill date, the due date, etc. The payment status is paid. All of those line items we wanted to capture, that's been done for us. And also what I think is really useful and actually just necessary, totally necessary, is behind every transaction that AutoEntry creates within QuickBooks Online will be a source copy of the document, as you can see here.
That's great.
So, I mean, it's super important because, you know, on occasion, Mr. IRS, he might come a knocking, and if he does, you're gonna need the source documents. You know, protect yourself, protect your clients, kind of thing.
Yes. Well, and even for me, I like, if there's ever a question while you're looking through the books, or if you have an auditor, a financial auditor that wants to see the detail behind the transaction or anything like that, you have it there instead of having to go to your other system to pull it up.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. As I said, it's just a necessity. You just need it now. Now, taking a bit of a pivot, the other thing that I suppose really makes us unique, and this is again being sort of cognizant that we've only been in the US now for about 7-8 months, but in that time, the feedback that we've got is that people love our bank statement capture as well. They really love our bank statement capture, and that's something that's quite unique about ourselves. 8 years ago, there was just 3 of us in the company, and we just captured bank statements. That's really what we did for the UK market, and we sort of pivoted into capturing bills and etc. about 4 years ago. So we've got a load of history in doing bank statement capture. So it's a similar kind of process, yeah? So let's just say Mr. Client brings us in the annual write-up work, 12 months worth of bank statements that I don't want to type into accounting software, nor do I want to sit there and have to pay one of my members of staff, because, again, one of the issues that I've kind of seen AutoEntry resolving is, to be honest with you, that of staff churn, because let's be honest with each other. I mean, staff don't want to do this type of work. They want to do something more interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get those bank statements and I'm just going to scan them through my office scanner. The only peculiarities with bank statements is that we do not let you take photos of them, and we do not let you email in data, because from a security perspective, emailing in bank statements with GDPR and all the other sort of security acronyms we could mention, we have to be really careful with our clients' bank statement data. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to upload them. Yep. Scan my data in and just select a project. So it might be FY18, Q1, whatever, and just upload my data. What AutoEntry is going to do is the same thing for the bills. It's just going to capture and extract all of the transactional data off the bank statements. What's going to happen next is AutoEntry's done the extraction, and we can see here we've extracted the account number, the date range, and any notes. So you might be thinking at least, what notes really are relevant? Well, things like pages missing happens all the time with clients. If AutoEntry detects a page missing, it will flag that up in the note field for you. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to click on the AutoEntry eye again, so you can probably see a recurring theme.
Yeah.
And as we can see, the left-hand side is the transactional data we've extracted. And then when this loads up, the right-hand side is going to be the original copy of the bank statement.
Wow.
And as we can see, this is a pretty common Wells Fargo statement, but just for the sake of clarification, AutoEntry works with any institution. It can be the Building Society of Western Ohio. It really doesn't matter. AutoEntry works with the 6,000 banks here in the US. There's about as many credit unions as well. I think just under 6,000. And Lord knows how many credit card companies. AutoEntry will work with all of them. It really doesn't matter. What I'm going to do now is I've got two choices. I can hit download. I can go, if I'm going into QBD, I've got a Web Connect file there that I can upload into QBD. I've got a QBO CSV format, which I'm sure all of you know how to upload a CSV file into QuickBooks Online, just via file upload. Mm-hmm. Alternatively, and actually what's really this is another sort of element of really popular functionality, is instead of just downloading the bank statement data, just hit fast code to QuickBooks. And essentially what this allows you to do is this allows you to send the financial transaction, the bank statement data, directly through to the general ledgers in QuickBooks Online as bank transactions. So the reason we call it fast code is because it allows you to code the data quickly. So I'm just going to hit details here, and let's just say, hypothetically, all these wire transfers, let's just say they're all for one supplier, just for the sake of the demonstration. I'm going to highlight them all. So I'm going to click on my first row. I'm then going to click, I'll do that again. I'll click on my first row, then click on my top row here. And while I'm holding my shift key on my keyboard, and then I can just say, right, that is for supplier, just hypothetically, Advantage Car Rental. And that is for travel. And I can see location, class, etc. And I'm just going to go publish. And as I said, that will send those transactions directly through to the GL in QuickBooks as bank transactions. So you can see that instead of having to do a CSV file or even worse, manually type this data in, this will just send the data directly through into QuickBooks Online.
So you guys have your own little bank feed almost. That like what we have in QBO is just it's a similar concept. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know how I position it, Cathy? I think the way that I really like to position it is that consider AutoEntry a bank feed when you can't get a bank feed.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
Acknowledging the reality, the most efficient way to do things is absolutely to use the bank feed within QuickBooks Online. And we stress, it's imperative for us that we stress that to all of our clients. However, in my experience, when I'm having conversations with CPAs, when I'm having conversations with bookkeepers, everyone has at least one. Everyone has at least one client that says they think online banking is the devil. They're just not reliable enough to use online bank or use the bank feed or whatever, or get it set up even, and they just want to bring you paper. And hey, if those listening, they have these type of clients, well, awesome. We can fix that problem for you.
Perfect.
Final thing just to skim over is expense reports. The expense reports and sales, haven't given these too much airtime, only because that is kind of the mainstay of our functionality and what we see people seem to be really attracted to. But expense reports are going to be quite similar to any other expense app out there, but to be honest with you, it's just going to be a fraction of the cost. So if you have clients that you do expense reporting for, or need a better way to do it, they're kind of price sensitive, AutoEntry is going to be exponentially cheaper than a lot of solutions out there. It's really simple. I use this app religiously, do a lot of travel. So all I do is I just get my smartphone out when I've bought dinner or taken a client out for dinner or whatever, just take a photo on the AutoEntry iPhone app. AutoEntry then populates the data, so we can see we've got the dates, the vendor, the expense category, and the amount. And actually, I just do this from within the app. All I do is I can just say, look, that is allocated to Tom's June report. And what AutoEntry is going to do is AutoEntry is just going to reproduce the report for us. So I can see here, Tom June report. This is my report for June. It's still open. Obviously, I haven't closed it yet. I've just got 2 transactions here. And if I click on the AutoEntry eye, I can actually just see that transactional data. And what I can do now is I can then submit that report, and that goes directly through to our financial controller, who can then review and approve the report. And what will happen then is that transaction will go through as a bill. So these here will create a bill that will go through to AutoEntry purchases that you can then send through directly through into QuickBooks Online. With the supplier is going to, as you can see here, AutoEntry demo expenses. The supplier is going to be the person who submitted the report in the first place. So in our QuickBooks Online, we're going to have Tom Porter as the supplier.
Oh, perfect.
Cool. So yeah, I hope that works for you. Hope that works for everyone.
Yeah. So we saw multiple line entry. I know that was a big one. I like this purchase order thing. I hadn't heard about that before. Mm-hmm. Loved looking at the bank statement stuff. That's cool. If you can go back to the home page, some questions.
Absolutely. So here, so the folder screen, or do you want me to go way back to the?
No, right here.
Excellent.
Right here. So what are the rejected items?
I'm glad you asked that question with regard to rejected items, because look, let's be, again, all have to acknowledge the reality here is that software is very rarely perfect. The principal reason that we actually reject items, there's 2 main culprits. The big one is that it's not an invoice, or it's not a bill, I should say. The big one is where people are uploading just, as I said, that kind of quote unquote bag of rubbish, and they're just uploading anything into AutoEntry, clients in particular. And so, for example, we can see this one here, this bill here, it's not an invoice. That's why we rejected it. Mm-hmm. So if we have a look, we can see quite clearly that is not a bill, that is a bank statement. So it's been uploaded to the wrong folder. Another main reason why we reject is because it's a duplicate. So AutoEntry will automatically spot for duplicates, which is really important because that happens all of the time. Mm-hmm. And then another sort of main culprit is handwriting. And actually, that's why I'm glad you asked this question, Cathy, because often what happens when I'm at events, people seek clarification with regards to handwriting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Handwriting, let's just say OCR and handwriting are, let's just agree they're not the greatest of bedfellows. The reason why, if it's handwriting like mine, if it's like chicken scratch handwriting, it's probably not going to pick it up. If it's pretty neat handwriting, then usually it's okay. But again, that's going to be a sort of, so for any people there that are dealing with a lot of clients that are receiving handwritten bills, I see this particularly in sort of like the restaurant trade. Mm-hmm. Just be mindful that if it's really poor handwriting, you might have a few headaches.
Right. It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's bad enough for the bookkeeper to have an issue when reading it.
Good. That's the best way to put it. Yeah. So if you're looking at it and you're like looking through squinted eyes trying to make it out, like AutoEntry is going to struggle as well.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've had to like try to reopen another screen, zoom in really well, and I still have no clue that I'm just guessing.
You know what's quite cool though? So let's just say that it is handwriting and AutoEntry's held its sort of figurative hands up and said, no, I don't understand this. If you can make it out by eye, so let's just click on that for a second again, brought up this example, and we can say, right, I actually understand that. We can move to inbox. And what that allows us to do is it just allows us to fill in that transactional data manually. So if you can make, and it goes through the same protocol as, we'll just go straight into QBO, it will secure, it will attach the original copy, but it just is left for you to manually transcribe the data in yourself, which isn't, so even if it does reject, you still get the opportunity to, get it through into QBO as long as you can make it.
Then you have the whole workflow and you still have the attachment to the transaction and yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
And how's the setup with QBO work? Is it pretty easy to set it up?
Yeah, I mean, that's thanks in part to QuickBooks themselves in terms of the API integration is particularly easy. If I just take this company here, Charles Barkley, we're just going to click on the name again. It's really simple. Just going to go to company settings and just go to integrations when this loads up. So you can see right at the top, and the top for a reason. It's the company that we have the most connections for. I think it's on QuickBooks Online, which we're absolutely delighted about, especially considering that we've only been in the States now for sort of 8 months. We're the 8th highest rated app on apps.com, which we're absolutely delighted about. So QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online takes really pride of place in the integrations that we're working with. But to answer your question, just hit connect. It really is that easy.
Awesome. And then if you're creating a new vendor or anything like that, that all gets pushed over?
Absolutely, yeah. So you can choose to create a vendor with an auto entry, and that will get pushed over into QuickBooks Online. We never auto create vendors, and there's a reason why. And the reason why is because, let's just say auto entry reads, like, let's call it, I don't know.
Like if they have, gas stations with 20 different gas stations.
Yep.
You don't want,
Exactly.
You don't want all of those put
Sometimes
in.
there's peculiarities in how the receipt would come out.
Right.
And it might say shell, one might say shell, the other one might say shell company. We don't want to continuously be creating vendors. So what you have the opportunity to do is say, this is shell, and it's going to be allocated to vendor shell. This is shell company, and whenever you see shell company, it's also going to be allocated to vendor shell instead of automatically creating a new one saying shell company.
Yeah, I actually have a situation with an app where I pretty much have to match up to the vendors beforehand before I do the sync.
Oh, really?
Make sure it's not automatically recreating.
I've heard that. We did pretty extensive. So auto entry, this is going back about sort of 5 years now. We were sort of really meticulous about planning the release of auto entry, because we actually had like a precursor solution to this. And the precursor solution had such a good reputation in the UK, in our sort of first sort of domestic market, if you will, that when we released auto entry, we were pretty meticulous about doing so to make sure that we could retain that great reputation. And so it was little things like that we kind of spent a bit more extra time covering, shall we say, before releasing.
Well, perfect.
Cool.
Well, I love everything you've shown us. Is there anything else that we need to know? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right?
It's pretty straightforward, yeah. The only thing I say is, hey, if anyone wants to trial it at all, just go to AutoEntry.com.
Oh, AutoEntry.
Or apps, of course, apps.com. And check us out. Try us for free. Let us know what you think. And hey, if you don't want to do any more data entry, you can sign up to one of our packages.
That's perfect. Great. Well, thank you, Tom, for your time today, and
enjoyed it.
And I'm sure everyone's going to be really excited about this.
Awesome. Cheers, Cathy. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Bye.